Hey guys, my name is Stephen Lowe, and I am the author of Overcoming Gravity. And today, in the Overcoming Gravity online series, I'll be going over part 8, which is in constructing your workout routine, part 2 in the book. And chapter 8 covers warm up and skill work. And so I'll be going over all the various stages of the warm up, blood flow, mobility, and positioning drills, and so on. And then also skill work, which includes sport specific drills, balance, agility, handstands, and so on. So let's get into things. So, with the warm up, there are a lot of different methods to do things. This is just my own classification. I tend to like using the classification of mobility, blood flow, and positioning drills. So with blood flow, the goal here is to get up your heart rate and oxygenation into the muscles and your nervous system and so on, and just be overall ready for exercise. One indicator that is particularly useful is working up to maybe a very light sweat. Generally speaking, anything works in here for the blood flow. So things like running, maybe jogging for several minutes, doing movement exercises like crawling and other fundamental movements like rolling around. Can really be anything in this to get the heart rate up and then also start doing some fundamental movements. The second part is mobility, and the goal here is to specifically take your muscles through and joints through the full range of motion. And in this case, it would be all of our joints that are involved in the workout. So for a full body workout, that would include, your wrists, your elbows, your shoulders, your scapulas, your back, hips, knees, ankles, and even other joints such as your neck, your toes, your hands, your fingers, depending on your specific sport and the specific exercises that you're warming up for. Body weight specific, a lot of the common ones that I've mentioned before that are really helpful for building up connective tissue integrity and strength over time are your support holds and your German hangs and skin the cats. But also for the upper body in particular, for body weight strength training, I do usually like some type of wrist and shoulder warm up specifically. It can be done with bands, can be done with body weight, or even just going into the rings or pull-up bar and stretching and moving the shoulders around. So lots of different ways to do things, and you can figure out what works best for you. Lots of resources on YouTube as well. There's like shoulder band routines for warm up. Ido Portal, don't know how to say his name, or Yuri Marmerstein both have very good band warm ups that you can just search and look for. Similarly, I like doing positional drills in the beginning, and these are not to be confused with doing exercises to failure. So, for example, going into a hollow position on the floor where your back is flat against the ground, and then into the hollow position, which is your feet off the floor, and then your head off the floor, and holding that position. Then doing flipping over onto your stomach for an arch position where only your stomach is on the floor and your feet and your head and chest are lifted up on the floor. Basically, learning the arch and hollow, and then also the straight body position, and also different core tension movements with like side planks and holding a straight body are very valuable to body weight strength training, namely because a lot of the difficulty with the progressions and good form with the progressions requires that you maintain the right body position for the specific exercises. And so, if you're not maintaining the specific right body positions, you can have some form issues, which can increase your potential for injuries as well as make the exercises easier. So, like if you're arching or have your hips up during push-ups. That will make the exercise easier, and in some cases, like with the arching, it can put more stresses on particular muscles in your shoulder, which can lead to overuse injuries. So it's important to practice these positions. You don't necessarily need to go to failure with them. If you're going to fail with them, you're more aiming for endurance for them usually, or potentially building up strength. And so they would be a strength exercise or endurance exercise that you would want to do near the end of the workout, not necessarily for positional drills and warm up. In the positional drills, you're just practicing the specific shapes and you don't want to be doing them to failure. So that is one of the most important points here that most people miss. You're not trying to fatigue yourself. You're just trying to warm up the positions that you're often going to enter during body weight strength training, especially to be able to maintain those positions. So, skill work is often a misunderstood thing as well. I'll go over why. So, most commonly, they're related to sports specific skills. So, you have your ball sports like basketball, soccer slash football, baseball, and then football slash American football. Common to have lots of drills for those sports, especially in ball handling and running and agility with the specific ball. Similarly, in body control sports like gymnastics, climbing, parkour, wrestling, martial arts, all of these have specific drills where you learn the techniques. And especially in gymnastics, you have your handstands, which if you're already strong enough and you're working on the balance aspect, it is considered a skill. So, one of the biggest misconceptions in the first edition of Overcoming Gravity that I included in the second edition is that a lot of people were getting the um, conception that most of the straight arm movements were skill work and that they should be added into the routine in that manner. So, like, you would have somebody make a routine that would be like, do all your warm up, and then in skill, you'd have your handstands, your front lever, your back lever, your planche work, and then in the strength section, you'd have all the rest of your strength exercises, such as your pull ups, dips, pull ups, rows, and so on. So, obviously, the misconception here is that straight arm movements are not always skill works. And sometimes they can be strength work, mainly if you're using that specific exercise in order to gain strength. So, like if you're doing planches and front levers and back levers, in order to get stronger to do that specific lever hold, then it's not going to be a skill, it's going to be strength. And you want to put them in your strength work section and include them as one of your strength exercises and possibly take out another strength exercise so that you can focus on that specific strength movement and not overdo the amount of strength training that you're doing and get overuse injuries. The main misconception here is that handstand for beginners, it can be a strength exercise. And so, like, if somebody who is sedentary and has never strengthened their shoulders over time, kicking up to a handstand and holding it against the wall can be strength of the shoulders, where your shoulders are burning after, 5, 10 seconds inverted, and it's very hard to hold yourself in the correct body positioning upside down. So, for that type of person, a handstand would be strength first. It is okay to add it in the skill work section as it will very quickly become skill. So you're not doing a little bit too, you're not going to be overdoing it. But for most people, once they get enough strength with their, push-ups, dips, and handstand work, and you're able to hold yourself upside down for, 30, 40, 50, 60 plus seconds, then it becomes skill because you're not working on the handstand to hold it longer against the wall. You're going to be starting to work to balance it away from the wall. So if this is the wall and this is your handstand, you're going to be start to work, try to balance it with your forearms pushing into the ground and keeping your body straight and finding the balance with that specific exercise. And so, obviously, if you're getting longer freestanding holds, it can be more endurance work for the shoulders at that point with the longer holds. But in most cases, the handstand will be moved from strength to skill over time as you're learning, mostly focusing on the balance, and then you're coming down before you get tired with that specific movement. So, similarly, things like one arm handstands, if you're not used to holding yourself upside down on one arm, it can be strength at first. But as you get more used to that and gain strength for that, then the one arm handstand will similarly become more balanced over time. So, especially with um, handstands and gymnastics in particular, you're going to want to aim to have only balance related skills in skill work. And so, like for handstands in general, if you're mostly focusing on balance, they belong in skill work. But if you're doing them for like time and holding them for time at the end, such as, handstand endurance holds where you're aiming for like 60, 70, 80 plus seconds to gain endurance in your shoulders, then they're going to be at the end of your routine and not in the skill work section. So for most beginners, about 5 to 10 minutes of handstand work at most, 2 to 3 times a week, and build up over time. If you're a professional hand balancer, oftentimes you're building up to, 4, 5, 6 times a week and 30 to 60 minute sessions. And so you can see there's a big disparity in what, pros will do compared to beginners. So you need to build those things up over time. Often the case with um, the handstand skill work, doing too much inverted at once is a high risk of overuse injuries on the wrists, mainly because most people have not supported their body on the wrists for their full body weight on their wrists for any amount of time, especially if you're sedentary coming in or you had wrist injuries. Just so be careful with starting with a bit too much. Usually, some type of wrist routine and backing off for a while will help. So with the strength skill progressions, here are some examples of how that would work. So in the beginning, basic static handstand holds might be strength, but as you get stronger with them, you will want to go to wall handstand progressions. After that, you can go to kick up to freestanding handstand progressions away from the wall. You also go through handstand walking, handstand presses, and bent arm and straight arm. And then over time, you can work towards handstand push-ups, one-arm handstands, one-arm press handstands. And obviously, each of these progressions through the handstands require strength to do the position, but they also require balance. So, if you are strong enough to practice these and it's mainly working on the balance, then obviously it's going to be more skill and can go into the skill portion of the workout. Whereas if you're limited by strength, it should go into the strength portion of your workout, such as your handstand push ups going close to failure. So, the important part to remember for these specific ones is basically that the strength can become skill over time. And especially if you're practicing skill, make sure it's focused on doing things like balance and you're also not doing them to failure. Whereas if you're training the specific attribute like strength, then those can be more to failure. And in general, remember that practice perfect. Remember that practice does not make perfect, but that perfect practice makes perfect. So this goes for all types of different skill work, such as your sports, your ball sports, or your other types of sports. Those things are important to do perfectly, and make sure you're getting full practice with those, and not kind of half doing them or getting frustrated and just kicking up with a handstand and getting all going all over the place. Those can be issues if you're not practicing fully with the specific thing, then it's better just to not practice it and ingrain bad habits.